Production support for the Friday Zone is provided by Smithville, a locally owned business serving central and southern Indiana since 1922, with residential and business internet, voice, and security services. Smithville, local pride, global technology. Information at smithville.net. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Today we're exploring the great outdoors, so bring your sense of adventure and come along.
You're not alone, you're in the zone. So hang up the phone and get in the zone. Get in the zone, the Friday Zone. You're in the zone. Friday Zone. Everyone is invited to come. Everyone is invited to come. Everyone is invited. Get in the zone. Everyone is in Friday Zone.
Hi, I'm Katie. Welcome to the Friday Zone. When I was your age, my mother was always telling my brother, sister, and me to turn the television off and to go play outside. When we whined and complained about having to turn off our video games, in my day it was the Atari, my dad's favorite saying was, "Go blow some stink off, some fresh air will do you good." Although I'd grumble the entire time I was tying my sneakers, it usually didn't take me long to find a backyard kickball game to join, a creek where I could catch tadpoles, or some friends to play with at the neighborhood park. If your neighborhood doesn't have its own park, however, that's no excuse for not getting out and exploring the great outdoors. Here in southern Indiana, the state's largest park is just a short drive away. With just under 16,000 acres, Brown County State Park offers families a variety of outdoor options. Whether you enjoy camping or hiking, fishing or horseback riding, swimming or picnicking, Brown County State Park has it all, including some very mysterious mushrooms. Put your hiking boots on and come join us on a mushroom hunt during our Friday Zone field trip.
Mushroom mania was sweeping over Brown County State Park's thousands of wooded acres the day that the Friday Zone field crew and I visited. Visitors to the park's annual Morel Mushroom Festival had one mission that day: to find the elusive morel mushroom. Thankfully, interpretive naturalist Brittany Davis was on hand to help explain why morel mushrooms are so sought after by mushroom hunters.
Morels, you're just drawn to them. It's the elusive morel mushroom. You could study, you can read a book and learn where to find them, but when you're out in the woods, it's entirely different. You could go by the scientific methods of what trees to look for, the moisture, the temperature, and everything, but you find them where you find them.
Although the day's events held much in store for park visitors, participating in a guided mushroom hunt was high on the list of priorities.
Start out the morning with a 10 o'clock guided mushroom hike, and we had 4 different hike leaders going to 4 different locations, and they go out and they're expert mushroomers. That's their job. Sometimes they call themselves runers, which is interesting. Where do you get runer from mushroom? I don't know. But they go out and they give you tips on how to find morel mushrooms.
According to Brittany, all mushroom hunters would be on the lookout for the morel's recognizable cap and stem, or the mushroom's fruit.
We just recognize the fruit, and that's what we pick. The mushroom is the fruit of the morel. They're living underneath the ground. If there's disturbance, they feel threatened, so they pop up to spread their fruit so they can make more mushrooms.
After listening to a brief presentation given to hopeful hunters in the crowd, I decided to join interpretive naturalist Jim Eagleman's hunting group. After the big group broke apart at the outdoor amphitheater, we reconvened at the Kelp Playground, located adjacent to the Horseman's Camp, where Jim gave us some expert hunting tips.
We want to just increase our chances by being in likely spots as we get into the later part of the season. And the likely spots is to stay off the dry, rocky ridges, and this park's got a lot of them, and we want to stay near the creeks and ravines where it's more moist or still stays moist. So you see a lot of feeder creeks that dump down into this area.
I paired this new information from Jim with some earlier hunting tips that Brittany had given me.
Usually they say look for elm trees, a fallen tree, or a tree that's not in very good health. Elms, ash, tulip trees, shagbark hickory, anywhere.
It didn't take long for the group to scatter. Many families took to the underbrush, while other individuals struck out and scouted the banks of the creek. Several young ladies skirted a fallen log as if it were a balance beam, and a few brave souls even climbed the sides of the steep bank, looking for morels, intent on their mushroom mission. One hunter asked Jim which variety of morel mushroom was the tastiest.
Tall yellows. And those are the tastiest ones. They get to be the biggest size. And when people come back with a big bag of those, you really consider yourself quite lucky.
Searching for morel mushrooms was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Unfortunately, at the end of the guided hike, the entire group came up empty-handed. Not to worry, though. There were plenty of other morel-inspired activities designed to keep us busy, including a coloring contest, a hands-on activity for children, and a mouth-watering cooking demonstration back at the starting point.
At 3 o'clock, we have a morel cooking demonstration. That's an exciting, popular one. You know, once you find these morel mushrooms, what do you do with them? In southern Indiana and, you know, central Indiana, we say batter and fry them, dip them in egg, and then in flour, and throw them in the skillet, and they taste wonderful. They're so good. You know, once you have one, you want more.
Not all mushrooms are safe to eat, however. So Brittany has a few rhymes for you to keep in mind when you're mushroom hunting.
Earlier, I was telling someone the little sayings on how to tell if it's a true morel or a false morel. You always want to be careful with any wild mushroom you collect from the wild. You want to be an expert or consult an expert before you would eat them, of course. We do have false morels, not very many, but one way to tell the difference, a fun little rhyme, they say, you know, when in doubt, throw it out. If it ain't hollow, don't swallow. That's a funny one, and what that means is you take your morel mushroom and you would cut a cross section of it and look at it. If the stem is hollow, it's good. You know, it's a true morel. That's just one way. If it would be solid, it would be the false morel.
Although this year's morel season is already winding down, the Brown County State Parks Nature Center is open year-round for families and children to enjoy. I already have plans to resume my hunt for the elusive morel mushroom next year, so when the annual Morel Mushroom Festival comes around again, be sure to bring your walking stick and come join me.
During our Friday Zone field trip, you were introduced to Brown County State Park interpretive naturalists Brittany Davis and Jim Eagleman. The city of Bloomington also has several special naturalists on staff called roving naturalists who travel around the greater Bloomington area, introducing children and adults to hands-on activities that enhance interest in the natural world. Well, we're in luck today because Elizabeth Tompkins, one of these roving naturalists, has dropped by the zone to help pique our interest in nature. My two friends Olivia and Maya are back for a second time this season, and they're ready to learn a little bit more about the great outdoors. I am so glad you have all joined me today. Thank you so much. Well, Elizabeth, I know you're a naturalist, but I'm not exactly sure what a naturalist does. So can you help me out and tell me what you do?
Yes, I basically teach people about nature, and I do that in a variety of different ways. I sometimes will go to schools and teach kids in the classroom, bring nature inside.
I bet they love that.
Yes, and sometimes I'll take kids outside from a classroom or maybe a Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop, and sometimes we have a table at the farmers market as well where we have activities and information set up about nature.
Wow, that's a lot of variety. That's great. So you have brought in several items for us today, and I'm guessing you're going to be talking about trees.
Absolutely, it's one of my favorite subjects, and I brought several different parts of a tree, and we can learn a little bit something different about each part. And this part is, what is this?
Leaf.
It's a leaf, yeah. And what can we tell from a leaf? Do you know?
What do you think, Maya? What can we tell from looking at a leaf?
What kind of tree it is by the shape of the leaf?
Absolutely. And what can you tell from the shape of this leaf?
It's a maple.
It is a maple, and it is specifically a sugar maple. Do you know anything special about a sugar maple?
Something sweet comes from it. What do you think, Olivia?
Maple syrup.
Maple syrup comes from it, yes. A delicious treat for your pancakes.
Definitely.
So we've got a sugar maple leaf, and we can tell what kind of tree it is. And what about these? Do you know what these are?
What do you think they're called? Do you know? What are they called, Olivia?
Tree cookies.
They are tree cookies. Not as delicious as maple syrup, but
You probably wouldn't want to eat these.
they do tell us a lot about a tree, different than what type of tree it is. It tells us something very special about it by looking at the rings that we see.
Okay. And so when you're talking about rings, you're talking about kind of like the different color variations that I see here that are kind of concentric and moving in a circle.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
What do you think those rings tell us?
What do you think?
How old the tree is.
Yeah.
How old the tree is. Yes, if we count these rings, we know how many years old the tree is.
Oh my goodness.
And you can see that the rings are a little bit different. What do you notice about the rings? How are they different?
What do you see, Olivia? What do you notice?
Well, some of them are tighter and like more squished together, and some of them are more spaced, and they vary in thicknesses and sizes.
Absolutely. And that can tell us something very important about where the tree is growing. And when the rings are further apart, it grew more that year. When they're closer together, it grew less.
So you can probably also tell, depending on how close together the rings are or how far apart, if it's a good growing season or not.
Exactly.
Okay.
Maybe in this later year, we have more shade around the tree, so it doesn't get as much sunlight and doesn't grow as much.
Now, do you have to cut down a tree to get a tree cookie, Elizabeth?
You do have to cut it down to get a tree cookie.
Okay.
Or maybe it falls down and we can cut a slice out of it.
Okay.
But there is a way that we can tell how old a tree is without cutting it down.
And how do we do that?
We do it with this tool. It is an increment borer. And what we do is we drill it into the side of the tree.
Okay.
And we screw it in all the way to the middle. And then out from the end, we can pull one of these.
So what are these, Elizabeth? What are we looking at here?
This is a core taken from a tree.
Okay.
And what do you notice about this core here?
What do you notice, Maya?
There are lines on it.
Yeah. Do those lines look familiar?
Yeah, like the ones on the tree cookies.
Yes. And so if we drill a hole right to the center of the tree, we can count the number of lines, which are the same as these lines, so we can tell how old the tree is.
And so this is just taking a small sample and not necessarily harming the tree to tell its age from a core sample like this.
Exactly.
I've got it. Well, obviously there are also a whole different variety of trees, and this is kind of a tree identification tool here to help you figure out what you're looking at. And here I'm seeing the leaves here, which is similar to how we looked at the leaves from a real tree.
Exactly.
And so you can identify the tree, from the leaves, and you can also tell about the age from these rings.
Right.
That's fascinating. So what kind of trees are most common here in southern Indiana?
Well, we do have lots of maples.
Maples.
And we also have beech trees, which have that really smooth bark. Have you seen those? And we have oak trees. And our state tree is a tulip poplar.
Okay. All right. So that's fascinating. Well, I have learned a lot about trees. How about you girls?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for coming
You're
in today.
welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, we loved having you. While some people like their feet planted firmly on the ground, maybe you're more of a water person. Bodies of water such as lakes, ponds, and streams offer lots of opportunities for water-based recreational activities. Let's see how former host Echo Chappelle survived her very first canoe lesson with the help of an expert during our Friday Zone flashback.
Well, now it's time to get in the water, but don't worry, no swimsuits are necessary. But you do need to know a few things before you go canoeing. And Nick is back to tell us a few things that we need to know. So Nick, what do we need to do before we actually get in the canoe?
Well, one of the first things you want to have is a plan on where you're going to go. Also, you need to check the weather before you go, because you don't want to be out on the water when it's bad weather.
No kidding. So what kind of weather is good for canoeing?
Weather, you want to go out whenever it's a clear day. You don't want to have any storms, because out in the water it's very dangerous. Possible lightning strikes and you're in the open and stuff. So also one of the things about weather is you want to dress warmly. You want to make sure that if it's a cool day, especially during the cooler seasons, you want to have layers on. So wear plenty of layers when you're out there, because out in the water there's a lot of wind. There's not a lot of protection from that kind of thing. So you want to make sure that you're ready to go and warm.
And we also both have on these lovely life jackets here. That's important?
Absolutely, it's very important. It is actually mandatory that children under 13 wear life jackets in canoes and
Oh, so
and
it's actually
boats.
a law.
That's right,
Oh, I
it's a
didn't know
law.
that.
So it's important that even adults should wear them.
Yeah, first-time canoers like me, you need life jackets.
That's right. Before we get in a canoe, there are a couple things I want to go over. One of the things is how to handle the paddle properly and to be comfortable with it when you're in the water. This here is your steering hand. You want to hold that up here. Now, it's easier for younger kids to hold it down lower because there's not as big of a stroke and they're not pulling as much water. There's less leverage. So for younger kids, I'd suggest holding it here. As you become more experienced, you hold it a little bit higher, you get a longer stroke and you get a little bit more speed as well.
All right, it's time to get in the boat, so what do we do?
All right, well, let's go over a couple things at the boat. Okay, AJ, before we get in, I'm going to have you hold these paddles and we're going to get Echo in here first. Let's go ahead and push this boat in.
Oh my gosh!
Okay, Echo, what I want you to do is step right in here in the center.
Okay.
There you go. And then back down in the boat. I've got the boat, so you're okay.
Okay.
Okay, try to keep even and walk down the center of the boat. There you go.
Oh, it is kind of tippy.
Yeah, you want to stay in the center and then just sit down and get your balance.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. You're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
Okay, now, AJ, what I'm going to have you do is hand her the paddle. All right?
As long as I don't have to lead.
You can just there. You got it?
I got it.
Okay, good job. Now, AJ, what I want you to do is have you sit right here. Get yourself comfortable. All right, now I'm going to get in the middle and kind of push off. You're fine. You're fine. Okay, I'm going to push you off just carefully. All right. You guys okay?
Oh my gosh, you guys.
All right. Now, I'm going to pull this around, and actually I'm going to enter in from the side, all right? Okay, now what I want you to do is take your paddle onto the other side of the boat. Now push out. Take the paddle and push out. There you go. That brings that back end around. There you go. All right. Can you push a little bit more?
Right. There we go.
There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to enter in from the side
Okay.
here. Okay, there we go. All right, we're ready to go now. Now what I want you to do, AJ, take your paddle and push it into the bank there and kind of push off. Can you push off a little bit? Here we go. All right. Okay, now.
Okay.
Now what I want you to do is, AJ, I want you to paddle on the right side. There you go. Hold the paddle like I showed you. There you go. Now start paddling. Excellent.
Should I help him out?
Yeah, now what you want to do is you want to start paddling a little bit on the left. Now, what you want to do, Echo, is you want to watch for AJ. As he's paddling, he sees kind of going to the left, you need to counter paddle, okay? And what that means is you're kind of keeping him straight. That's why you're steering, all right?
Oh, I'm steering.
You're steering.
Right on.
Okay. All right, AJ, stop paddling now. Now, I want you to take your paddle, hold it in on the left side here, and push forward. Push forward. There you go. See how that turns us around?
Yeah, cool.
That's called a backstroke, okay? That backstroke actually helps do some steering. See how that's working?
Yeah.
Whether you're canoeing, hiking through the woods, or hunting for mushrooms, it's always important to remember that many animals call the great outdoors home. My next guest is ready to introduce us to some reptiles that are native to the state of Indiana and also some reptiles of a more exotic variety. Please welcome reptile expert Cheryl Mitchell, known to many as Scaly Tails. Thanks for joining us, Cheryl.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
Well, I know you're a reptile expert, so what do the girls and I need to know about reptiles?
Well, one, hygiene. After you handle your reptile, wash your hands. Use hand sanitizer or soap and water. count for 20 seconds, do your ABCs, and then go do other stuff.
Okay, so make sure all the germs and any
Yeah,
bacteria.
just sudsy water is the main thing. Doesn't have to be hot. You don't have to take your skin off.
Okay.
Just suds it. The suds will take the bacteria away.
Okay.
Because a lot of reptiles carry salmonella in their system.
Okay.
And that's the big concern. But just don't play with your turtle and then put your fingers in your mouth.
Sure.
And you'll
So
be
after
fine.
we're done today, we'll do a little hand
Oh
sanitizer.
yeah, I've got
and
hand
take care of
sanitizer,
that.
and you can wash your hands too.
Okay. So I believe that reptiles are cold-blooded. Is that true?
Yes, they
so
are.
So what does that
ectothermic.
mean?
That means they cannot regulate. Like I'm warm, we sweat, or we shiver when we're cold.
Sure.
They can't do that.
Okay.
They don't have the mechanism like we have an internal furnace. They can't do that. What they have to do is thermoregulate.
Okay.
If they're cold, they need to go to a hot or warm spot. If
All
they're
right.
too hot, they need to go to a cooler or warmer area. And they have to, if you have them as a pet, they have to have a hot, warm, and cold area so that they can
can
thermoregulate.
choose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they get too cold, it's not going to be good. If they get too hot, they can get sick also.
Okay, well you have brought several reptiles with you today. So let's start with this beauty over here in your carrying case. Tell us what you've got in there.
This is Loki.
Loki, and what kind of reptile is Loki?
Loki is a bearded dragon.
Ah, Loki is beautiful.
Loki is one of my adoptions. I run an animal sanctuary, and I take in animals that have been abandoned or need to be rehomed.
Okay.
He is about 2 years old. He's a really good, healthy size.
Oh my goodness.
He's very alert. I call beardies the dogs of the reptile world because they're very friendly, very handleable, really good first reptiles for people to
Sure.
start
Where would
with.
we find a bearded dragon?
In the wild, they come from Australia, the
Okay.
deserts of Australia, so they need it hot and dry. To
Ah.
break it down simply, they are omnivores. They eat crickets, mealworms, phoenix worms, veggies, fruits. Not too many fruits because they're desert animals.
Got it.
And just you just got to chop stuff up for them.
Wow.
And just it's always best to research an animal, any animal, but especially reptiles, before you get them, so that you don't get home and go, oh, I've got a 10-gallon tank for something that needs 55
So you know how
gallons.
to take care of them
Yeah.
properly. Now, Olivia, I see a little hole on either side of Loki's head. What do you think those might be?
Ear holes.
Is she right?
She's right.
Ah, so that's how Loki hears, right?
Yep.
Wow.
And they have another neat thing, because in the wild they have to scavenge constantly.
Sure.
They're hunting, and if you come across a buffet in the desert, you don't want to let it go to waste. So their stomachs are extremely distendable.
Oh, so
There's
he
been
can have a pretty
times-
good meal.
Oh yeah, there's been times he's pigged out. I've given him a lot of lettuce, and he can barely walk because his belly's so round.
Oh
But
my
that's
goodness.
designed so that if they come across a bonanza of food in the wild,
Right.
they can gather it up and not let it go to waste, because who knows when the next meal's
So they
coming
can
in the
kind of
wild.
store it until they need it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Unfortunately, that makes it easy to overfeed these guys as pets.
I bet. Well, Loki is adorable and very interesting, but you've got a host of other reptiles
Oh,
behind
yeah.
us. So let's put Loki back in the carrier there. And tell us who your next critter is. What
Okay.
reptile's coming up next?
Next one is my very first snake.
Okay.
Okay, this guy, his name is Slinky.
Slinky.
I named him that because when he was a hatchling, when I got him, he would go from hand to hand to hand like a
Oh
slinky.
my goodness. What kind of snake is Slinky?
This is a rosy boa constrictor. This is one of the two boas that are native to the United States. Now, you're not going to find them in Indiana. You're going to find them in California,
Okay.
Nevada, New Mexico, Baja, Mexico, things like that. The neat thing is these guys live in little arroyos, little valleys in the desert. These are also a desert animal. And if you look in the wild for these guys, you'd have to go to the Whitewater Canyon to find this type of
Okay.
rosy boa. Each area has its own evolved colony, and they all look different from one another.
So if Olivia and I wanted to touch the snake,
yeah.
where can they touch Rosy?
Just
the
about
rosy boa
anywhere
safely?
but the head. Most snakes are what we call head shy,
Reach over there, Maya.
where
I'm gonna reach too.
they just
Gently. Wow.
yeah. He's been to a lot of
very
different
neat.
demos. He doesn't really mind much of anything, but
Oh,
yeah,
my goodness.
a lot of snakes are head shy.
Sure.
He's not as bad.
Wow.
But just think about the difference in size between us and them, and it's a
Right,
little
and this is a
intimidating.
fairly small snake compared to some of the other boas.
This is the maximum they get.
Okay.
Rubber boas are the other ones that are native here, and they're about the same size too. And they're both a really docile species, and they don't get 20 feet long, 300 pounds like
Right.
some of them do.
Wow.
So,
Well, I think that Slinky here is beautiful. So let's put him back for just a little bit, and we'll bring up the next two. Do you think we can do that? Or at least the next one that you've got back there? Who have you got?
I've got Crazy Moon.
Crazy Moon. And what kind of reptile is Crazy Moon?
She is a red-footed tortoise.
Oh my goodness.
They are native to South America. They are like it hot and wet, to break it
Okay.
down simply. Now, if you notice her her carapace. Their shell,
Her
the
shell.
top is called the carapace, and the bottom is the plastron.
Okay.
And for anybody who's seen over the head, they don't really come off. They're actually integral to their skeletal structure. You'll notice she's got little pyramid stacks
kinda bumpy.
on her. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is actually called pyramiding.
Uh-huh.
And when that happens, it's a sign of either too much protein, not enough calcium, or not enough humidity in the case of
So Crazy Moon didn't necessarily have proper care.
No, she didn't have proper care. She's another one of my adoptions. She was actually abandoned by her owner in the apartment.
Okay.
So some people found out about it, and they knew about me, and they contacted me, and
Sure.
I gave her a permanent home. And
Sure.
she goes to demos like this. And
So if kids want to find out more about reptiles like the ones we've seen so far, where can they find out more information?
if you like frogs and toads, and they're really cool, you can go to SaveTheFrogs.com, which is started by Dr. Carrie Krieger, who is trying to get everybody aware of the fact that we are losing more amphibians than ever before.
Okay.
Since 1979, there have been 200 species that have gone extinct, which is not cool.
Yeah.
So also the HoosierHerpSociety.org,
Okay.
which is the website for the Hoosier Herpetology Society based in Indianapolis.
Okay.
And all the members go on there. You can ask questions, you can talk to them.
Great.
You can also find them at reptile shows.
Okay.
They have booths, and just go talk to them. They love to help people get started out in the trade. You can also go to your library, ask your
Sure.
teacher, do as much research as you possibly can so that other animals don't have to suffer like poor
Those
little
are
Crazy Moon
great
did.
suggestions. And we are going to meet a turtle in just a minute or two. But thank you so much, Cheryl, for helping us learn more about reptiles. They are all beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, since we're exploring the great outdoors today, I think it just makes sense to visit a city park with an important past in the History Zone.
While driving through Indianapolis, Indiana, take care not to miss the historical marker located at 1901 East Washington Street, the present-day site of Willard Park. Although there is now a park at this location, this site was once the location for the Indiana School for the Deaf. The Indiana School for the Deaf was founded in 1843 by William Willard, the first deaf person in America to establish a state school for deaf people. Blue and gold and built to last, historical markers showcase Indiana's past.
With that, it's time to say goodbye for now. I would like to thank roving naturalist Elizabeth Tompkins for sharing her tree talk with us today. I would also like to thank reptile expert Cheryl Mitchell for introducing us to some of her cold-blooded friends. I'm so glad that Olivia and Maya were able to explore the great outdoors with me. Be sure to take what you've learned here in the zone and make it your own. I'll see you here next week. Okay, so tell us who you've got over there, Cheryl.
This is Simon. He's a yellow-bellied slider,
Oh,
so named for his
Simon.
underside. And he is an aquatic turtle,
Okay.
as you can see by his webbed feet.
Okay.
In comparison, she is a
Sure.
terrestrial tortoise. She's got thick
So
elephantine-like legs.
tortoises are more found on land,
Yeah.
and more terrestrial, and the turtles are more aquatic
Yeah.
or water-based.
Yeah, if you don't see webbed feet, don't try to do the turtle a favor or tortoise and put it in the water because
It won't
tortoises don't swim very well
Oh
at
my
all.
goodness, okay.
But yeah, these guys, you'll see a few of these up in this area, but you'll see their cousins more often. They're the red-eared sliders. They have
Okay.
a dash of red behind each eye. Other than that, they're pretty similar.
So if families and kids want to come see some of your reptiles, how can they find out where you're going to
Oh,
be?
just contact Wonderlab every other month. I come in on the first Friday, and I'm there from 5 to 8, usually 4 to 6 of my critters, and they
Okay.
can pet them and ask questions and find out more about them.
Oh, that's great. So what do you think, girls, from what you've learned about reptiles today? Any comments, any questions for Cheryl?
I really like reptiles.
Yeah.
Production support for the Friday Zone is provided by Smithville, a locally owned business serving central and southern Indiana since 1922, with residential and business internet, voice, and security services. Smithville, local pride, global technology. Information at smithville.net.